It begins in a village in India. A man named Batuk leaves the keys on the door as he enters a palace and scolds a worker for not finishing some work before the guests arrive from America. The worker complains that no one wants to work in the palace after 5 p.m. as they are scared of the ghosts in the palace. While checking the palace, Batuk gets scared and runs out, leaving the keys on the door. Batuk then has a chat with his future son-in-law, the college professor, Sharad, and realizes he doesn't have the palace keys. Batuk pulls scared Murari to the palace. They retrieve the keys, and they see a scary shadow that makes Murari run away. Janki, Batuk's wife, goes to meet her brother Badri. Just then, the royal arrives. Siddharth and his wife Avni greet Badri, his uncle. Siddharth tells Badri that they had arrived the previous day and went to the palace to check it out. Everyone greets the couple. Siddharth tells Badri why they're there, and Badri tells him that they can stay at his palace, but Siddharth says he wants to stay in the palace since Avni likes palaces, and that's why he got the repair work done. Badri tells him they don't stay there since they believe there are ghosts in the palace, but Siddharth tells him that he'll believe it when he experiences it himself. Batuk goes to the palace, and as he's scolding Murari for running away, they both see a woman figure strolling in the palace. Murari runs away again and sees the figure through a window and falls down and begs for mercy. Avni comes out to pick him up. Murari, still scared, is then pacified by Nandini, who introduces Avni to him. Badri tells Siddharth that he is the rightful heir to the throne, but he has still not been crowned yet. Siddharth tells him there are no kings anymore, and he doesn't believe in this, but will do it only for his uncle. The coronation begins, with all its grandeur, and Avni tapes everything. Later, Avni asks Nandini for a room to keep her books, and gifts her a book of poems by Sharad. Nandini runs away shyly, saying that she will be getting married to him soon. As Nandini is taking Avni to the room, she sees a room bound by chains, and asks why. And Nandini says they are not allowed to go there since there are ghosts there. But Avni pulls her and takes her in. They see a door with a huge lock, and Nandini tells her it's locked so the ghosts don't come out. Suddenly, Badri starts calling Nandini, and he sees them exiting the chained room. Furious, Badri scolds Nandini and warns Avni not to go there. Janki tells Avni more about the ghosts, that there was a King Vibhuti Narayan who ruled, who was Siddharth's ancestor. He admired art, many singers, dancers, and poets who came to his court. Then came a Bengali dancer, Manjulika, whose dance was breathtaking. The king fell for her, but she was in love with a singer named Shashidhar, who stayed where Sharad currently stays. Their love grew, but the king got to know about it. One day the king called Manjulika to dance for him, and during her performance he drew his sword and killed Shashidhar and locked Manjulika in his palace. Wedding preparations started, and when the soldiers went to get her from the room, they found that she had taken her own life and left a note saying she won't let any king live in this palace. Soon the king died. Rituals were performed and the souls were locked in a room. Avni asks Siddharth if she can open the locked door, and he tells her to do whatever she wishes. She gets a key made and opens the lock and enters. She finds Manjulika's clothes, anklets, and a beautiful painting of her. Suddenly, Radha calls Avni and tells her she did the wrong thing by going there, and that the goldsmith who made the key died. Badri scolds Nandini and sends Batuk to get the high priest. Siddharth tells Badri that he gave Avni permission, and the goldsmith died of liver failure. They get to know that the high priest is traveling, and they don't know when he'll be back. So, Badri makes a decision to move his entire family to stay in the palace for the couple's protection. Badri, Batuk, and Natwar go to lock the haunted room again, but as they are beginning the ritual, someone bangs the door from the other side. Badri asks who that is, and she replies she is Manjulika, and tells them they will regret trapping her there, and throws the huge lock outside. They run away, but Natwar gets lost and falls down, where he sees the ghost. Radha tells Siddharth that a maid says she's seen the ghost. Then, suddenly something is flung at the glass cabinet that breaks it. Siddharth goes outside to see what has done it, but no one's there. And then again, some glass plates break in a weird way. The maid says it's black magic, but Siddharth says only a human can do this. Then suddenly a huge pendulum clock was pushed down, and Radha was the one standing closest to it. So Siddharth assumed she did it. As Avni returns to her room, she finds her camera broken, and Siddharth is confused about why would a ghost break her camera like that. The next morning, Siddharth goes to tell Badri that he knows who's doing all this. But just then, they hear a scream, and Avni is seen running with her sari on fire. The family saves her, and she says she doesn't remember anything, but to ask Radha, as she was there too. Radha says by the time she's seen her, the sari was already caught afire. Then Siddharth asks Badri if Radha has any mental health issues or any stress, as adopted kids do have such problems sometimes. Badri denies it. He tells Siddharth that he had seen the ghosts on the 3rd floor with Murari and Natwar. They even heard her voice. He requests Siddharth to leave the palace to go to his house, but Siddharth disagrees and says they are not moving, and says Radha needs mental health assistance. Badri walks out and tells the others that they are not leaving the palace, and that Siddharth feels Radha is suffering from mental health issues. On hearing this, Batuk goes to the kitchen and sees Radha looking scary and holding a knife at him, which spooks him. He runs out and tells Badri that the ghost has gone into Radha, and that she's pointing a knife at him. Then suddenly, Radha enters the room, and everyone starts staring at her. She asks everyone why no one answers her, and everyone leaves. Siddharth welcomes his friend Aditya, the psychiatrist, who he called for Radha. Later, Nandini asks Radha where Avni is, and she tells her she's gone up. Nandini goes up to get her, but when she goes up, she feels she's being followed by someone, because someone crosses behind her, but she doesn't see anything when she turns. Avni is shown exiting from her bath. Someone tries to choke Nandini. She screams and tries to run away. Siddharth and Aditya hear her scream and try to get to her. She runs to a room and suddenly hears the anklet sound of the ghost. And then suddenly someone pushes the swing at her, which hits her in her head. She screams and she faints. Siddharth and Aditya get there, and they find a blood trail. They follow it to a locked door, which they break open to find unconscious Nandini. The doctor says she's lost blood, but nothing stressful. She tells Batuk that she had gone up to search for Avni, and what happened there. But Avni asks her who told her she was there, since she was having a bath. Nandini says Radha did, and Avni is shocked. Aditya and Siddharth discuss that it could be Radha who did it. In the night, Aditya hears the noise of the ghost's anklet as he's sleeping. He goes to check it out. He later hears someone singing in another language. He follows the singing, which leads him to the locked room of Manjulika. He then knocks on the door, and Manjulika, the ghost, stops singing and runs away. He tries to follow her, but loses her. As he's searching, she passes by him and throws a marble vase at him, but misses. Aditya sees Chandu and asks him why he was there. Chandu says he wanted to pee, and Aditya asks him if he saw who threw the vase at him, but he says he doesn't know. Avni gets Aditya tea in the morning. He tells her that he heard Manjulika sing and dance late in the night, and asks her if anyone there knows Bengali or classical dance. Avni tells him that Radha knows Bengali but not dance. Avni asks him where did he hear this. He tells her it came from the 3rd floor, and he asks if they could go check it out. Avni tells him they can, but they have to be careful about nobody seeing them. Avni shows Aditya the portraits of the old king of Manjulika, Shashidar's house, of all Manjulika's jewelry enthusiastically, and finds an anklet missing. As they are leaving the place, Aditya hears the sound of the anklet and follows it. He then sees Chandu, who has the anklet, and questions him about it. He asks Chandu if he's the one who dances on the 3rd floor in the night. Chandu denies it. Aditya takes the anklet and scares Chandu away. The next day, Avni and Aditya go to the temple together. Aditya tries to tease Avni as he sees Siddharth and Radha in the temple together, but she tells him that Siddharth can't think of anyone else but her. Then he shows her the anklet and says these are not Manjulika's, but she gets angry and tells him she knows. But Aditya stops the argument. Aditya hears the anklet sound in the night again and starts looking. He reaches Manjulika's room, locks the door, wears the king's sandals, and takes his stick and walks around, imitating him. Manjulika stops her dance and asks who's out. He tells her he's King Vibhuti. She tells him to open the door so she can kill him. She later tells him that she'll kill him on Durgashtami, so he tells her to come then and leave now. She leaves. Later, Aditya finds Chandu nearby and asks Chandu why he is always there when something wrong happens, and threatens him to tell the truth, or else he'll hypnotize him. Crying, Chandu tells him that he wants to find out who's doing this too, since all are blaming Radha. Aditya pacifies him and tells him it's dangerous to roam around at night, and that they will find out who it is together, and to do so, they need to go to Malikapur. And they set out. Aditya speaks to many people on his journey. He even goes to a school and speaks to the teachers. The high priest sends 2 men to the palace to tell them to prepare for a prayer ceremony before Durgashtami. Avni asks Radha to make tea for Siddharth and for some rose petals, which she wanted. Radha goes to get it, then sends the tea to Siddharth and Nadini. Aditya then enters the kitchen as he's collecting all dangerous articles like knives and etc. Aditya notices an empty rat poison bottle near the tea vessel with some stains on it and realizes that it has been poisoned. He runs to stop Siddharth from drinking it. Siddharth asks him what's wrong, and Aditya tells him that his tea has been poisoned. Nandini then tells them that Radha made the tea for Siddharth. Then Aditya accuses her of being mentally unstable and that she should be locked in a room. Badri tells him to get out. Siddharth then intervenes, saying he's a doctor. Aditya tells him he can't decide and locks her in a room as Badri protests. Then Radha asks them why they're all accusing her and threatens them that instead of making her live like this, they should just kill her. And she says she knows what to do. Aditya rushes in and then comes out as Radha cries inside the room. Badri decides to get Nandini and Sharad engaged. The celebrations begin in full spring. During the dancing, Avni drops some food on Sharad by mistake and pulls him aside to clean it. Aditya finds Avni missing, and Siddharth and him look for her. They find her, but with Sharad, and from what they are seeing, it seemed like he was pushing himself on her. Siddharth gets wild and pulls Avni aside and fights him. Avni faints, and Aditya tells him to save Avni instead of hurting Sharad. In the room, Aditya tells Siddharth that the palace ghost is in his own wife. Shocked with disbelief, he denies it. Aditya goes on to explain that he knew from the beginning that Radha was not sick, and the day that he went to the 3rd floor with Avni, he saw a weird restlessness in her eyes, the kind mental patients have. Siddharth asks him if Avni is mad. He says no. He tells Siddharth that she has dissociative identity disorder, which means a person completely forgets themselves and becomes someone else. Aditya tells them that he and Chandu went to her hometown to know more about her. They got to know that when she was 3, her parents left her with her grandmother and went to America to work. She felt lonely, but her grandmother used to read her fairy tales, which she used to get lost in. As she was growing, her grandmother's health started deteriorating, so her father planned to take her to America. Deeply upset with the decision, she has an outburst and walks out screaming and tearing her papers to bits at a school test. On hearing this, her father forcibly takes her to America, and soon after, her grandmother passes away. This leaves her traumatized, but as she grew up, she got over it. But when she came to this palace, she felt deeply connected with Manjulika's story and felt pity for her, and felt that she is Manjulika. Avni felt that good should always win over evil, so she wanted Manjulika's love to win over the tyranny of the king. Aditya goes on to explain how Avni created all the weird situations in the palace. Sharad then asks Aditya if he knew Avni was ill, why did he blame Radha? Aditya told him that on one incident, he almost saw Manjulika take control of Avni, and if he let that happen, it would be very difficult to separate them. Hence, to divert Avni's attention, he blamed Radha. Avni gets up and calls Siddharth. She shows Siddharth her torn sari. Then Aditya says Radha might have done it. She agrees and goes back to sleep, saying she's exhausted. The next day, Aditya tells Sharad that when Avni becomes Manjulika, Sharad becomes Shashidhar, and Siddharth becomes the evil king to her. And whatever she did to him that day was all because of this. He says that with passing days, she transformed more into Manjulika. and on Durgashtami Day, she will be entirely transformed. As Manjulika, she wants to kill Siddharth, and if she is unsuccessful, she might even take her own life. The high priest comes to the palace. Then he looks at Aditya and tells him that he has seen him before, and then recognizes him, that he's a famous psychiatrist. Aditya and him speak alone, and he tells Aditya that this is an incurable case. But Aditya tells him that he needs the high priest's help in creating an exorcism atmosphere. As Avni believed in the stories of fairies and ghosts her grandmother told her, and that he wanted Siddharth to tell Avni that she is a mental patient, the high priest wishes him best. Aditya then tells Siddharth to stop Avni from going out with Nandini. Siddharth does that, and Manjulika takes control of Avni, and she notices it. Siddharth helps her understand what's wrong, and she then goes to sleep as she's exhausted. Siddharth pleads to Aditya to cure Avni. Aditya tells Siddharth his plan, and the plan begins. They go and tie the anklets on sleeping Avni's legs and lock her inside. The high priest has created an exorcism environment, but someone needs to get Avni there, and only Sharad can do that. As they were discussing this, they hear the anklet sound. They follow it and see Avni dancing, fully transformed into Manjulika. Aditya tells Sharad to go get Manjulika to the ceremony. As she gets there, she sees Siddharth with men behind him. She thinks he's the king and goes to attack him, but the men stop her and take her to the priest. The high priest then asks her who she is. She tells him that she's Manjulika. He asks her why she came here. She says she's here to kill the king. Then he tells her he will help her kill the king, but Manjulika will have to leave Avni's body after that. She agrees. Then Siddharth lays on a trolley device, which pushes him near Manjulika. The high priest gives her a sword to kill him, but just at the right moment, the high priest aims smoke at her, and a trap door on the device releases Siddharth and puts another body in front of Manjulika. She aims and strikes the fake body and loses her senses. Aditya then helps Avni understand the situation. She apologizes and thanks Siddharth for loving her unconditionally. Aditya then proposes to Radha and leaves. Thanks guys for watching, and if you liked the video, make sure to watch the next one. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Bye-bye!